Hello, friends. I am Chevy. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I hope it's fantastic. Everything here is great. I hope you had a great weekend. I sure as hell did. Today, I want to talk about A Short Stay in Hell from Stephen L. Peck. Um, a quick little novella. Um, does my Kindle tell me how fast I read it? It does not. It's a very quick book. This says it takes about an hour and 20 minutes to read. I probably read it a little faster than that. I'm a pretty quick reader, like an hour-ish, hour and 10 minutes, somewhere around there. It wasn't very long. It's a very short book. But, so last week I mentioned that I had read 4 books in 4 days, and that I was doing research for writing, wanting to look into novella-length stories in specific, and I asked for recommendations, and somebody gave me the recommendation for this book. And I generally try to, if somebody takes the time to make a personal recommendation, I try to read it. Try. Usually, I find that our tastes don't mesh as much as I was hoping or whatever, and I don't make it through the book. But this time I did. It was a very quick read, but also a very enjoyable read. Short Stay in Hell is an interesting discussion or a interesting look at what would happen if time became meaningless, essentially. And that was this person's hell, was like, an infinity of time to try to learn a lesson that he's not told what the lesson is. I don't really want to go into the super specifics because it is a quick read, and if you're interested in kind of stories that make you stop and think about your personal beliefs or the beliefs of others, or human nature and the way that things tend to work out, I think it's a good book. I think it's a good read, and because it's so short, it's cheap. So yeah, I read 4 books. I read this in one evening on a Friday evening. Just sat down and read it, I think, in one sitting, and definitely caused some thought processes. It was basically a situation of what if your religion wasn't true. There was only one, and everybody got it wrong. There was a couple of questions. The one of the issues I have with the book is there are some unanswered questions that I don't mind when there's unanswered questions, but there's the one in specifics, specifically one in this book. This is kind of a little bit of a spoiler. That the author mentions it over and over again that it's only English-speaking white people in this particular hell. But he never answers that question. Like, we never find out if there's a reason for that. It's just a question that he asks over and over again. And that felt a little, really, you could have given me something. Or maybe the end point of that was to not give me anything and let me figure it out for myself what that means. Don't know. But very interesting read. And I've already started on something else. What am I reading? Oh, I'm back to reading King. I haven't read any King in a year or two. That's probably not true. I tend to read Stephen King pretty often. I find his writing to be very similar to my own. And I don't know that is me saying that I didn't take influence from King. I've definitely taken influence from King. But my writing style, I use a lot of ellipses. I use a lot of em dashes. That has been a part of my writing style since I was a kid. And I write very conversationally. So if you've read any of my articles, you'll know that I write as if we're just sitting down and having a conversation. And that's Stephen King. Like, we share that. What he has that I don't have is storytelling ability. But so I wanted to read Holly, his newest book, but I haven't read any of the Bill Hodges stuff, so I just decided to start at the beginning and read Mr. Mercedes. I started that right after finishing A Short Stay in Hell on Friday night, and I'm 75% of the way through it, so I'm almost done with that book, and I'll move on to book 2 and finish it by the end of the week. My mom, she said she saw I had to go help them yesterday do some stuff around their house, and she was like, I saw that you read 4 books in 4 days. Do you really read that much? And I was like, yeah, sometimes. Like, I didn't, I told her, like, to be fair, they're very short books, but yeah, they're there are times where I read, there are years where I've read 30, 40, 50 books in a year. There are years when I've read no books. There's years when I've read 2 books. Like it just, I forget that I enjoy reading, or I don't have anything interesting holding my attention, or something else like game design or whatever is going on in my head, and I just don't have time for reading at that point. But there's times when just reading is the thing that I want to do, and that's the thing that I do. I just read. And that weekend was one of those weekends. I wasn't feeling good. So I just read the whole weekend. Got 4 books done in a weekend. Again, very, very small books. But still books. And that's what I have to keep telling myself on my writing adventure that I'm on. I have written over 3,000 words, which is maintaining a pace of about 500 a day. That's good. I'm not keeping myself to that number. That just seems to be, I sit down, I write for a half an hour to an hour, I get about 500 words. That usually I'm doing a little bit of editing or note taking in the rest of that time. And that feels about, all right, I made it. 500 words lets me kind of figure out the next little segment, and then I go, okay, I'll put it on pause for now. So I think like one day I wrote 700 words and one day I wrote 400 words. And like, so it all equals out in the end, but I'm not holding myself to anything, but I have been writing every day, and that feels good. I have written 3,000 words of this story, and that feels great, and I'm going to keep doing it because I'm enjoying it so far. And because I have clear goals, right? The goal is write a book. If you read my article that came out Saturday morning, the goal is to write a book. The goal is not to tell a story. That is secondary. The goal is to finish a book and publish a book. Make a book. That's the goal. Make a book. If it sucks, it sucks. That's fine. The goal is to make the book. And then we'll figure the rest out next time. We'll figure the rest out if I enjoy writing this particular story, we'll figure out the next story. We'll figure that out later. We'll get there. But make the book. That's goal. So, working towards that goal. See what happens. What else did I do this weekend? I spent some time down here on Saturday. I spent a lot of time down here on Saturday. I got a new, well, you saw the shop back last week. I got it hooked up to the miter saw. Dust collection is pretty good right out of the box, but it can be better. I'm waiting for, there's a gentleman on YouTube, his channel is called Shop Nation, and he makes dust collection sort of add-ons or upgrades for miter saws. He's coming out with one for this saw. It's not out yet, so I'm waiting for that. And then I attempted to build a new dust shroud and screwed it up completely and got mad at myself and tore it apart and then went upstairs. So I did, and I built a little like hat. Hopefully I'll remember to put a picture up. I built like a hat / key rack out of just some pallet wood I had laying around. We saw something similar at a craft store, antique store, and Malia was like, why don't you build something like that to put hats on? I think, just keep it sloppy and loose and rustic. And I said, okay. So I did that this weekend. And then, read. Did family stuff. I had to help my mom and dad do some stuff. So, good times. But thank you, whoever recommended A Short Stay in Hell. That was an interesting read, and I can recommend it to just about anybody. I think it's a fun little story, and even if you're not a reader and you're not going to read 4 books in 4 days, it's a good story to kind of come back to and reflect on and read slowly instead of plowing through it in an hour. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know sounds smart. It's tenebrous. It is an adjective meaning dark and gloomy. Eloise and Marcus spent the day exploring the tenebrous forest that surrounded their family's main compound. Tenebrous. 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 That's a fun word. Tenebrous. I've never heard that before. Dark and gloomy. I can definitely fit that into my new story. So look out for that if you buy my book when it's done.